I'm Nikolas Rabogliatti, one of Viking's corporate enrichment and program managers, and have been with the company for about 10 years. In this episode, I will travel through northern France to explore two powerful World War II landmarks featured in one of our shore excursions from Bruges, Belgium. The Éperlecques bunker and the Dunkirk Dynamo Museum. Immediately while we're here, I'm just taken away by this imposing building. Tucked away in quiet woodland, the Éperlecques bunker is a vast Nazi launch site that was built for V-2 rockets, bombed by the Allies before it became fully operational.
The idea was 36 V-2 rockets a day towards London.
And in the coastal town of Dunkirk, the Dynamo Museum tells the story of the dramatic 1940 evacuation, with moving personal accounts and artifacts from one of the war's most pivotal moments.
The goal was for the French and British soldiers to hold back the Germans as long as possible.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Nico. Nice to meet you.
Nice to finally meet you, yeah.
Okay,
what a
great.
pleasure.
Okay.
Immediately while we're here, I'm just taken away by this imposing building. Can you tell me a little bit more about how it was constructed?
Yeah, of course. Well, this building is the largest bunker in Europe, okay? This was the bunker for launching the V-2 rockets towards London. The idea was 36 rockets a day. All the rockets came from Germany, from a place called Nordhausen. They went inside the bunker, put the rockets to the vertical preparation, filled it up with fuel. Now the fuel was ethanol, which is alcohol, and the accelerator was oxygen liquid. And inside this bunker here is a factory to make liquid oxygen. What you see here is only a third of the project.
And how long did it take them to make this?
9 months.
9 months?
9 months.
And then it was finished?
Yeah, 35,000 people worked on this project. The original project was 400,000 tonnes of material, sand, gravel, cement, lots of wood to make the bolts, and a lot of metal to make the reinforced concrete. I said 35,000 people worked here, 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day.
All right, I can't wait to explore more, so
yeah,
let's go take a look.
Let's go on then, let's go. We're going to come up to one of the modifications that the Germans done after the bombing of the first bombing on the 27th of August 1943.
So this is when they had to change their plans?
That's when they changed their plans. That door shouldn't be there. Now that door weighs 216 tonnes, 85 cubic metres of reinforced concrete, okay? And the idea was the train came from Watt. We can still see the railway that comes through the forest.
Yeah.
But you understand it's been abandoned since 80 years ago.
Yeah.
So the train goes through that door, into the interior of the bunker, picks up liquid oxygen, and then it goes back towards the train station. And what you see here is the water table. Okay, that's a natural water table. When the Germans were building it in 1943 and 1944, they had to pump the water out 24 hours a day, otherwise it'll be flooded inside.
Yeah.
It's actually flooded since 1944, okay?
Okay.
It's natural.
Yeah.
Now what will happen, we will go into the party which is devastated, okay?
Yeah. Here on this map, on the red section, that's the part where we started, but I also see a lot of other colors here. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, of course. The red section is the bunker in front of us.
Yeah.
That's about 75 metres long, okay? We are now standing on the green section.
Yeah.
This was partially built and obviously never finished. And the blue section was never ever realised, because what happened was, with the cancelling of the launching of the V-2 rockets, they didn't need this section. This side of the bunker should have been 216 metres long, 3 times the size of that. So you can imagine it's absolutely gigantic. After the Normandy landings, what happened was they were still building. They bombed this place up about 40 times. 7,000 bombs were dropped here. Winston Churchill got a little bit fed up, so he sent off American and French pilots in Lancaster bombers, and they dropped 32 6-ton bombs on the site. Now I have to explain, they were never able to pierce the bunker, but the bombs which done the damage were the bombs that landed on the side of the bunker, and they created a mini earthquake.
Yeah.
And the shock wave started to move the foundations and the walls, and the technicians who were inside were absolutely frightened that everything would explode, because they were mounting the compressors, the Halon compressors, to compress air to make liquid oxygen, okay?
Yeah.
So what happened was they dismounted all the Halon compressors,
Yeah.
because they still need it, because they were still going to launch these V2 rockets.
When this site was abandoned, who took its place then?
When the site was abandoned, that's a very good question. What happened was they left in the 17th of July, and when this place was liberated in September 1944, there was nobody here. It was completely empty.
Yeah.
Shall we carry on?
Please.
Right, Tim, we're just in front of the entrance that goes inside the bunker. We should be about 12 feet lower,
Yeah.
but they've raised the floor level to be above the water table. Otherwise, it's still flooded inside, huh?
Okay.
So you can see it.
And this door is still operational?
The door is still operational. It works on rails with 2 electric motors.
The temperature difference is
Oh, yeah.
stark.
Yeah.
So there was no damage inside?
No. So the rockets used to come along here.
Yeah?
Rockets used to come along here, and then stop here and then go outside. Because these 2 concrete floors
Yeah?
were put in afterwards
Okay.
to stop liquid oxygen and to reinforce the bunker. So there was technicians on each side. The rocket came along very, very slowly on a rail, okay? And then it comes into the shooting gallery. That's the train coming from Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, he comes inside, then they unload the rockets, put them into the vertical state in the storage room. As I said, over 120 normally. Then they will select 18 rockets for this side and 18 rockets for the other side. Normally, so 36 rockets a day.
And
Then you can see the chicanes to send out the shock wave.
Exactly.
Okay, the
Can
exterior.
we take a look at, see the rocket up close?
Because normally there should be an opening there. As they've cancelled the launching of the V2s, they
don't
didn't
need the
need
opening.
it.
No.
Okay? They didn't
But
need
this was
it.
the intention.
That was the intention. What they did is they just filled in they filled in the opening. You
Yeah.
can see the chicanes here. Look.
Yeah.
Okay? And that was these vents there, that was to get rid of the gas which comes out from the exhaust.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
That's the model.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's the real
Gives
size.
you the real size.
Yeah, about 45 feet high.
45 feet,
45,
yeah.
46
Yeah.
feet high. And once that took off, Nikolas, it took 3 minutes
To
3
reach
minutes
London.
to get to London. 3 minutes.
Because it goes faster than sound, right?
Well, you go 5,300 kilometers an hour, which is 4 times
4 times the sound.
the speed of sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the first object that went into
Oh
space.
yeah, went into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
It was the first object which was launched by the human race that went into the thing. This is the ancestor of all the modern day rockets, thanks to Mr. Werner von Braun, which was the inventor, okay? And unfortunately, Mr. Hitler turned it around to make a weapon of war, okay?
Yeah.
A vengeance weapon, okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, but the V1, we was talking about the V1, we haven't talked about that. That was a launch. This is the only site in France where you've got both the V1 and the V2 launches, okay?
Yeah.
The V1, which was the Doodlebug, 400 ramps. They launched them towards London, 22,500 V1s.
right, so Bob, we're standing here next to these two imposing weapons of mass destruction. So what links them to this site?
Right, there we have the famous V2. 3,170 were launched. Okay?
From here?
No, all from mobile launchers.
Okay.
From articulated lorries, all from Holland.
All from Holland.
Nothing from France, nothing from Belgium. And then just in front of us as well, that's the V1 rocket pointed towards London. There were 400 ramps, all pointed towards London. This was a non-guided missile, the first that ever existed, like a drone today, but it was non-guided. And I said they launched 22,500 towards London. This missile was guided.
Yeah.
Wasn't very, very accurate, but it was guided,
Yeah.
okay? It would go in the atmosphere. I said it took roughly 3 minutes to get to the target. This used to take quarter of an hour or 20 minutes, depending where the launch ramps were, okay?
But I mean, you would say, even though part of the construction happened here, since nothing was ever shot from France.
That never ever became operational. It served for absolutely nothing.
So this bunker, as imposing as it is, was really a complete failure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bob, for all this information.
So much information. And I said, you're more than welcome. And I said, it's still going to be there in 1,000 years.
Yes. I hope many of our guests get to enjoy this wonderful tour with you as well. After an eye-opening tour of the Éperlecques bunker, I said goodbye to Bob and began my journey eastward, passing through the serene fields and farmlands of the French countryside towards the coast. It's difficult to imagine now, but this tranquil landscape once echoed with the chaos of war. My destination was the beachfront town of Dunkirk, a place etched into history during the desperate days of May 1940, when over 330,000 Allied soldiers were evacuated across the channel in what became known as Operation Dynamo. Here in Dunkirk, I visited the Musée Dunkirk 1940, Operation Dynamo, a museum dedicated to that remarkable evacuation. At the museum, I met Gauthier, a passionate historian and guide who offered me a personal tour of the exhibits. Can you tell me a little bit more about the museum itself?
Of course, yeah. The history of the museum goes back to the 90s, where an association of people interested in history wanted to tell the story of Dunkirk during the Second World War. So you can see a lot of things in the museum, from displays to artifacts, vehicles, and also photographs of during the war, of course.
Okay.
Follow me, I'm going to show you.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit more about the room we're about to go in.
This first time in the museum, we do have a life-size diorama with soldiers just right here, you can see. And this is the first, something we wanted to show to the visitors from a long time ago. And this one specifically is about the defense of Dunkirk during Operation Dynamo. The goal was for the French and British soldiers to hold back the German as long as possible to allow British and French troops to be evacuated from the beaches and the harbour.
How long did these fortifications last, actually? How long was the defense for?
The defense started from the beginning of the Battle of Dunkirk, from 26th of May up to the 4th of June, where the Germans finally entered the city and putting an end to Operation Dynamo.
And how many troops were assigned to defense of the perimeter?
Several thousand. There was actually 40,000 French soldiers captured after the German invasion in Dunkirk itself, right?
So that's French soldiers that were not able to be evacuated.
Exactly.
About 40,000 of them.
About 40,000. It was too late for them.
Yeah.
British managed to evacuate all of their troops, minus the wounded who would have to be left in the hospitals in here. But the British were able to evacuate all their troops. And from the 2nd of June already, there was no British left to be evacuated.
Yeah.
Only the French remained, but the British continued the evacuation for the French troops.
So I see a lot of different types of uniforms and troops here. Can you tell me a little bit more about who is in this recreation?
Yeah, so in here we wanted to show different kind of troops involved during the defense of Dunkirk. On the left side here, you have artillerymen, French artillerymen, manning a light machine gun in anti-aircraft position here. On the right part here, you have French infantry coming from a Zouave regiment, which is a specific regiment with tradition of North Africa, which were French colonies by the time. And these soldiers were manning an 81mm mortar, which were actually one of the most deadliest weapons of Second World War. This one engine comes from a Spitfire, actually.
I was hoping to see one of these today, yeah.
So this one specific engine was actually found at sea, close to Dunkirk, on the coast, and retrieved by fishermen. We are not sure about when and where this specific plane was shot down, but we actually can identify the model by the engine itself.
Yeah.
And
these were, of course, heavily used during the Battle of Dunkirk and
yes,
the evacuation.
They are, of course, yes. And they were actually used through the whole Second World War.
So I assume that they were also involved with the liberation of Dunkirk and France altogether. Can you tell me a little bit about that period of the war?
Yeah, so the Spitfire were involved during the liberation of France since the Normandy landing in June 1906 of 1944. And of course, they were also involved during the whole campaign, right? Up to the very end of the liberation of France, which happened in 1945. Dunkirk was actually one of the cities that were liberated by the very end of the Second World War, on the 9th of May.
And what took it so, why did it take so long for Dunkirk to be liberated?
The fact that Dunkirk was completely destroyed after Operation Dynamo, it was not a strategical value for the Allies to capture it. So instead, they actually bypassed the city to target more important cities in Belgium. And the city of Dunkirk was left behind, be a siege, first by the Canadians, that were actually the ones here first, and then by Czechoslovakian soldiers fighting under the British Army.
Yeah. And do you know what date actually Dunkirk was liberated?
It was liberated on the 9th of May.
The 9th of May.
9th of May 1945.
Yeah.
So one day after the German surrender in Europe.
Gauthier, I hear that you have one last quite unique piece in this museum that you still wanted to show me. So can we
yes, I do.
Please head that way?
Just follow me this way.
Thank you. So now I want to know why the final piece that you wanted to show me in a World War II museum would be a wedding dress.
Yeah, the liberation of France was about battles, but that was also about the lives going on again. And that's why we wanted to show in the museum here with this wedding dress. Which also make it interesting in a war museum is the fact that it was actually made from parachutes.
So you're telling me the entire dress is made out of leftover parachutes?
Exactly. Gathered during the war. This specific one actually comes from a British bomber that's actually bailed out of its plane. The fabric from the parachute was quite actually wanted by the French people because it was good quality fabric.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That doesn't rip, but doesn't...
yes.
Exactly.
And that's what they made out of it. So.
I mean, I have to say, I have seen worse looking wedding dresses made out of premium materials, so the fact that this is made out of parachute is very special. It's a little bit symbolic of the resolve and the resilience of the people to also restart their lives and to make sure that there's still things worth celebrating for.
Exactly, so, that's exactly what we wanted to show.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful piece. Thank you, Gauthier. Thank you for this entire tour here in this wonderful museum.
You're very welcome.
I'm very grateful for the time spent here, and thank you very much.
Pleased to meet you again if you want.
I hope that a lot of our guests come your way as well, and that they get to experience everything that this museum has to offer.
We'll be more than happy to welcome them.
Thank you very much, Gauthier. World War II is not a war that was just won in one single battle. It's a collection of smaller victories, smaller chances and opportunities that presented themselves. And today, we got to see a failure from the German occupying forces in setting up the V2 bombs and the successful evacuation of more than 300,000 Allied soldiers, way more than the 30 to 40,000 that were originally estimated. These two events and many more are to be explored on our itineraries. So I'd really invite you all to come here and explore these, but also explore all the wonderful things that we can show you in London, on the Seine River, on the Normandy beaches, like Omaha Beach, Juno Beach, Sword Beach, and then of course here at this wonderful location of Dunkirk. Thank you for being with me today, and I hope to see you all very soon on one of our Viking river ships. Thank you.